Is there such a thing as a fan base being too excited about a young player? Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey, I also offer daily shots of the Penguins in the same place that you found this. Tonight in Latrobe marks Friday Night Lights. That is the nighttime practice that the team has, not at St. Vincent College. If you're going out there, don't make the wrong turn off of Route 30. They're at Latrobe Memorial High School, which is a completely different campus, a completely different stadium. And if you've never been there for one of these before, it is a completely different kind of football experience. And one of the many great things about the way this franchise has carried itself in training camps over the years is that they are so accessible to the public and so close. Until you're out there, you find this hard to believe. You can not just see everything, you can hear everything that's being said, almost everything. And in turn, they can hear everything you're saying, and they will react to it. I don't have some sort of meter for this, but there can't be a player in this fold right now who's feeling more loved than Will Howard. And on one hand, that doesn't surprise me. The city is really ready to anoint its next franchise quarterback, even if he is that in waiting. I'm sure that there's at least some percentage of those fans who watched Howard and Ohio State win the college football championship with him playing well in that final game against Notre Dame. And I'm really sure that a lot of the fan base has seen Howard being interviewed. He is a personable, that's not even strong enough. Let's see what else I got here. He's magnetic, okay? And when you're talking to him, you feel like you've known him forever. He's one of those types. And he comes across that way, even if it's to a group of people or a group of cameras and microphones. He just has that about him. And as such, he's very much the kind of player that you'd want to succeed. Doubly so if he's employed at the most important position in professional sports. All right, so fast forward. Howard is now on the scene. He's one out of four guys in the quarterback room, one of whom is a living legend, another of whom is an NFL veteran who's been around this organization for a long time. And so Howard goes out there as a dude. That's all he is. And it's dude with a small d. It's not dude as in dude. It's just dude. He's just a dude. And when he's lining up to take his turn in the throwing reps, boy, I got to watch it because you can really get your head bit off for saying the wrong thing about Howard, I think, in this atmosphere. He's got work to do, but he's also got the capability, both physically and mentally, to get that work done. There are two traits that Howard showed through his collegiate career and really through his whole football career that I feel are going to serve him best now. One is that he's capable. He's got the tools. He's got the frame, reasonable size, reasonable speed, and a strong enough arm. Two, and this is where I'll intertwine the mental component, he's always shown a propensity for learning and improving beyond what's expected. And I throw that last phrase on there because you can say that anybody's learning and improving, and it might not be by much. In Howard's case, you can go over every step of his career, including the move that he made to the Buckeyes, including even the course of the season that led to the championship. He became better, visibly so, tangibly so, meaning through statistics and advanced analytics, and film that showed his decision-making. And you gotta like that. That's something that the Steelers brought up when they drafted him, that they saw that his trajectory, his arrow was pointing upward, the way Mike Tomlin likes to say. But it actually is. Now, if it sounds like I've been delaying a but, I kind of have. He has work to do. And where I get kind of cringy a little bit about the fan reaction to him is I think fans are of the mindset that, oh yeah, if you just put him out there, if Aaron Rodgers wasn't here, he'd be. No, he wouldn't. If Mason Rudolph was the starter for this team, Howard would be either a distant backup or more likely a number 3 with a veteran backup brought in. I was saying that all summer. I'm going to stand by that now. That's because the Steelers don't see him as ready. And when I watch Howard myself, I see signs as to why. And rather than go over some list of those, I'm just going to limit it to one. He needs to throw the ball as if he's in the NFL. What do I mean by that? Well, again, it's not about his arm. He can send the ball downfield. He can do the heave. What you're not seeing, at least not often enough, is Howard rocketing the ball into a tight window. He's looking around. He's finding the open receiver, which is kind of how college ball goes. Receivers tend to be really open. And he places the ball. And it's all the kind of thing where if you're just watching the drills casually, you don't really think about it. You just think, oh, yeah, he fits right in. He didn't mess that up. But what you don't see, and believe me, I'm not being an idiot here and comparing him to 4-time MVP and a 20-year vet. But what you don't see are Howard yet doing the things that he needs to do to take it to another level, which does involve risk. Aaron Rodgers spoke the other day pretty eloquently, I thought, about how he feels like in camp settings, he's always needed to try certain things, to take certain risks to see what it is that he can get away with, what it is that he needs to correct, what it is that he can share with the intended target to avoid these things happening in the future. And as he added, kind of glibly, and this was a little bit funny, I think my history will show that when the games get real, I do a pretty good job of protecting the football. And he's right. I mean, his interception ratio is ridiculous. Well, on the positive side, to swing things back to where everybody wants them to be on this subject, one cool, subtle thing that I've noticed is that Howard, with every passing practice, seems to be finding a little extra zip. He doesn't want to be the one who stands out right after Rodgers fires one and then Mason fires one. Just learning, just getting better. But, go easy on that gas pedal. When we come back, J1Q. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George is a personal injury law firm in Western Pennsylvania that represents injured people in automobile accidents, workers' compensation cases, and medical malpractice claims. The attorneys at Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George pride themselves in doing what they say they're going to do. It's important to them that when they make you a promise, they keep that promise. And this law firm has been keeping promises for over 80 years. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has been AV rated. That's the highest rating a law firm can receive for legal ability and ethics. And the lawyers at the firm have been designated super lawyers, that's a real thing, for over 15 years. Rare combination there. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has offices in Cranberry, Newcastle, Beaver Falls, Butler, and Elwood City. Learn more about them at lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. Again, that's 888-842-5454. Today's J1Q comes from my man Damian Preston, who says, DK, do you remember me? I named my son Pittsburgh. We love you in Port Arthur, Texas. My favorite player for the Steelers is almost always the nose tackle. Can you briefly tell me why Big Dan didn't make it? Before we get into Dan McCullers, Damian's not kidding. I actually responded to him the first time he brought this up. His son is named Pittsburgh, and it's like not Pittsburgh spelled some other way. It's got the H. It's the whole deal. Now, I don't know what this young man's going to have to deal with in school, but it's still pretty cool, right? Anyway, I like what you brought up here because, Big Dan was actually a pretty cool guy, and thinking of him just makes me smile. But it's also a little instructive, I'd say, about where the Steelers' defensive line is going now to go back to why it didn't work with McCullers. Because, see, Big Dan was, in fact, big, like really, really big. As in 6 feet, 7 inches, 348 pounds. Now, where he is now with that frame, I don't know. He's 32 years old. He's been out of football since trying to hook on with the Bears in the COVID year. Before that, he logged 73 games for the Steelers. Only 3 of those were starts, 2.5 sacks, 2 passes defensed. The funny thing about Dan is that the one thing that you really needed him to do, which was to be big, he didn't really do. And here's why. Opponents would see, obviously, how big he was, and they would just leverage under him and knock him back, in some cases, literally, like all the way back onto his big derriere. And it was around this time that teams in general were rethinking the nose tackle position altogether. The Steelers were one of the last to continue trying to recreate the Casey Hampton types. That meaning, be really big, take up 2 blockers. Be dangerous enough that they don't have a choice. This was the Aaron Donald era of defensive football, and I do believe that AD was great enough to deserve having an era named after him, at least on that side of the ball. Now, everybody wanted their own AD, or at least somebody who would cause problems for the offense in a very different way. AD would eat up 2 blockers, sometimes 3, but AD could also beat them. And if you look at the Steelers' defensive line right now, setting aside Cam Hayward, you have a story developing between Keanu Benton and Derek Harmon, in that Benton was brought here and described as a nose tackle, which is a term that really Tomlin doesn't even use much anymore. And what they ended up getting out of Benton was they got really excited about him early on, you'll recall, and he was doing all kinds of disrupting and getting all kind of credit for it. But then you look at the game sheet afterward and you'd go, just a bunch of zeros here. What actually happened? That became more the case in Benton's second year, where nobody would ever really say anything bad, and he did have his moments of pursuit, especially, I thought, in the game, the victory against the Commanders down in Landover. But over the offseason, the Steelers made very, very plain that they needed more from him, not just the line in general, but him. So along comes Harmon. Harmon's got the reputation of being able to do, well, a little bit of all of this, but he is a guy who gets to the backfield. He gets where he wants to go. And he's big enough, and he's strong enough, and he's going to get his TFLs and his sacks, and he's going to get his PDs even, as he has already in this camp. That's passes defensed. And when it comes time for the Steelers to have only 2 down linemen on the interior, which historically, in recent history, I should say, has been most often, it's actually become their base. Well, let's just say they're not taking Cam off the field. And let's also say that it's not a coincidence that whenever I asked Keanu, what position are you actually playing now, he just smiled and said playmaker. And when I asked Carl Dunbar, this was on the same day, what position is he playing? Because he said he's just a playmaker now, and Coach Dunbar lit up and said, yeah, that's right. That's what he is. He's a playmaker. Okay. Well, Big Dan, to boomerang this all the way back for you, didn't make enough plays, and the position changed a lot. I appreciate the question. I appreciate all the righteous torment that your son will endure someday, and I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Steelers. Don't forget, we have a double shot coming up today at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's live on our YouTube channel, and of course on our own app and website, DK Pittsburgh Sports. It'd be really nice to have you along for that.